Good morning. It's nice to see you all back here at the George and Joyce Wein Jazz and Heritage Center right here in downtown New Orleans. This is the 10th annual Sync Up Conference, which, as you know, is an economic development program of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, which, as you also know, is a nonprofit that owns the Jazz Fest. And our role is to use the money from Jazz Fest for programs that we do all year long in the areas of education, economic development, and cultural enrichment. And today is the second day of our conference, and we have a full slate of panels today, and I'm really excited about this first one, which I'm going to kick off right now. And this is all about planning your independent record release strategy, which is, as it would suggest, when you are getting ready to put out a new record, what are all the things that you should be thinking about in terms of making the biggest impact with that record? And we've got an incredible panel of musicians who have multiple levels of skills among them. And first is Amal Abdul Khalik, better known as AF the Naysayer. And I've been going around saying AF the Naysayer, but I was corrected that it's AF the Naysayer, which does not mean what you think it means. It's not naysayer as, but it's actually something else. And it's actually got an interesting story that's kind of pertinent to what we're talking about. Amal, do you want to just kind of remind folks of that explanation that you gave me earlier?
Yeah, so AF is the acronym for abstruse functions, and dealing
abstruse functions.
Abstruse functions, dealing with like physics, and it's like a problem that's has no real solutions, always evolving. So
like the music business.
Like the music business, or
Okay.
like there we go.
Problems that have no solutions, or no, I got that wrong. What is it? One more time.
The answers are always changing. So
Okay.
There we go. Let's leave it at that.
Even more to the point. But you are an electronic music producer, instrumental hip-hop producer. You go all around the world doing gigs.
Yes.
And you make records that you release under your own imprint.
For sure. Self-educated vinyl.
That's right. And you also are, speaking of education, you also are an instructor. You teach people skills in music.
I teach songwriting, music theory, and beat making at a nonprofit called Upbeat Academy, which is located here in New Orleans.
All right.
There we go.
Fantastic. And next to you is Marc Broussard, everybody. Well-known musician, singer, and songwriter who has a 12:30 gig on the Acura stage today at Jazz Fest. So you might have to cut out just a little bit early, we understand, but we'll try to, actually, we're going to try to keep this rolling. But you are an artist who has been around for quite some time. When was your first record? 2002?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. But you put out your own records independently.
Nowadays, yeah. I was on major labels for
But
a number of years.
before that, you did independent releases, didn't you?
I had one independent release and then signed to Island Def Jam and then signed to Vanguard and then signed to Atlantic and then Vanguard again. And now I'm independent again.
Okay. And now you have your own label, G-Man Records.
Actually, we're in the process of starting a new label called Artist House Records.
I'm sorry. I got it wrong.
Not a problem.
Okay, cool. And next to you is Josh Hefner, who, in addition to being the drummer for the Lafayette band, the Royal is it the Royal Teeth or just
Royal Teeth?
Just Royal Teeth, okay, of course, is also a practicing entertainment attorney.
Yes, so I practice here in New Orleans and Nashville.
And your band has been an independent band. You were signed to Dangerbird Records, and then you were signed to, was it Elektra?
Elektra, yeah.
And then, do I understand that you guys are now between labels, as they say?
Now we are on Round Hill.
Round Hill,
Yes,
okay, great. All right, fantastic. Thank you for being here. And then finally is Sean Hart, who is one half of the band Caddywhompus, and he is also a web designer, and he's originally from Houston, Texas, but makes New Orleans his home now. And you guys, Caddywhompus, have just released a new record called Odd Hours, right? And you have also, you were with Community Records, which is a New Orleans-based indie label here for quite some time, but now you have switched to a new label. Which one is that?
It's Inflated. It's a kind of small boutique label, but kind of still independent releasing style, but independent management, but it's one guy in DC putting out records. So.
Got it. Okay, great. Let's see if that mic is working any better. We have any audio? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Technical stuff is our mission. So great panel here today. So thank you all very much. So the topic is planning your release strategy. So to kick it off, I kind of have one question that is persistent for me. I was on my way here this morning and I was listening to WWOZ in the car, and the DJ mentioned that Trombone Shorty has a new record that just dropped yesterday. Yeah. And I've always been puzzled by that. Why is it that we have to feel the need to identify a particular date that the record, quote unquote, drops, it's the release date of the record? Because you remember how it used to be with record labels, and the record would have to come out on like the 13th week of a particular month, and it would only be on a Tuesday, and all sorts of weird stuff like that. And then you have people like Kanye that put a record out, and then they want to fix a few things and change, and they put it out again, and they kind of want to do some more edits, and then maybe take a song off or add another song or something like that. So I mean, does it really matter? Does it matter what day of the week or of the year that you put your record out?
Yes.
Why?
Especially as an independent artist, absolutely. Because there is such an outflow of new music into the market that it's important to do everything you possibly can to separate yourself from the broader industry. So picking the right day and making sure that your record isn't up against Kanye's is probably a good idea.
But how do you know? I mean, Kanye could be releasing his record 5 times in the next 6 weeks. How do you know when you're...
Well, if you have any sort of relationship with digital distributors, they'll keep you keenly aware of what is in the pipeline that might get in the way of your own release.
Do anybody else feel that, Sean, you guys put a record out recently. Was there a particular rhyme or reason with the April 14th being the release date of that record?
I think that's when Kendrick Lamar's album dropped, because I woke up 10:30 a.m. like, oh crap, like this is the wrong day. But we also didn't choose that ourselves. It was with the, like he said, the distributor. It was kind of like, this is the date, or you get to pick out of these 4 days. Right. So I was like, well, if we don't get to pick the day ourselves, I guess you probably know the flow of whatever's happening, and I'm not really sure if there's any like rhyme or reason to it. It's just these dates where all the moving parts of that of the industry kind of will accept your record into the flow. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong time, but it was a lot of huge albums came out, and we're like a pretty small band, but I think it didn't really affect us, and may have helped us to like be up in the mix.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important because you're also fighting for, attention with PR, with radio, with, digital placements on things like Spotify. So to piggyback on what these guys were saying, I think it's important to just do your research and kind of see what you can find out and time it out where you aren't competing. Because the more you compete, the less attention you'll get. And I think that's just, kind of the big picture there. And also, just basic things like holidays and, like the fourth quarter, people tend to be a little more distracted and a lot going on. And, even so small, like just practical things, I think can be important for, smaller artists or independent artists.
Amal, when you make a record and you get ready to put it out, will you, have it sitting in the can for 6 months, and because you've said, I'm targeting next February 11th as the date when my record needs to drop?
Like I have a bunch of EPs and albums that I'm just sitting on, waiting to release them, waiting for the right time to release it. So usually I set up a release when it's like tour season, of course, like September, October, or the spring. So like my next EP I'm putting out, that's going to be in August, September. So
why? Can you talk a little bit more about your thinking when you're planning that?
I'm currently talking with a booking agency. I'm going to be support for like an act, and I'm going to be gone for like probably like 30, 40 days. So just makes sense. Oh, all right, put out an EP with that, with the press release. It's put out a single like a month before, that goes out, announcing the tour dates, and then there we go.
So do you guys agree that you want to time it to coincide with the tour that you have planned?
Absolutely. I think, even just internally with your team, when you set a date, everyone's working towards that date. There's like a sense of unity where, everyone has your date is your release, and everyone's doing their jobs and following the timeline and really just like making the most effective release by just having that impact date. I think, whether it's tours or, PR or radio appearances or, whatever it may be, just having everyone on the same page, shooting for that date and moving forward with an organized timeline, I think is important as well.
I think just setting an actual date just to build hype for your fan base. Just let them know, like, hey, coming out in 3 weeks, coming out in 2 weeks, coming out in a week. Just extra content to put on social media. So
it's basically a PR move.
Absolutely. As a creative, I would put the music out. I wish that I could just put it up and that it would be downloaded millions of times. That would be fantastic.
Well, I guess that was actually my very next question. I mean, so let's say you pick a date that September 1st is going to be the date my record drops. It used to be, back in the day before we had digital technology, before there were MP3s and all that kind of stuff, literally the music was not like even available unless it was leaked to radio and somebody unauthorized started playing your song, but it was, technically embargoed before that. But nowadays, like, there's nothing, I mean, you could have that up on SoundCloud and, there's nothing stopping other people from checking. So do you actually prohibit your music from being available to hear before that date that you select?
I mean, I pass the record around to some friends, I want to make sure that my peer group feels very good about the record before it comes out. But am I worried about the files getting leaked? Not really.
Josh, you're shaking your head like...
Never really a big concern of ours,
Well, I'm just, because if you say that the record's coming out on September 1st, but, well, if you go to my website, you can listen to it right now. I mean, it's like, it almost begs the question, what difference does it make?
I think the release date has as much or more to do with distributors and their needs to generate traffic than it does with us as creative types. I think that we choose these release dates specifically so that we can allow the retailers, both in the digital and physical spaces, to have something to market to their customers. They have something special going on that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know if it's the same now, but, it used to be that for distributors, they have so many records in the pipeline that they have to carefully schedule when they're going to come out so they can do the marketing, right. They can sell the units to the retailers, they can build the hype around it. Yeah. So it was just a matter of managing the content flow. Yeah. Basically.
And I think that's similar to why we still have, I think that's the reason why we still have release dates as opposed to just a bunch of jerks out there, putting up their download links and randomly. I think that Apple and all of the digital distributors want to have a very well thought out release schedule so that things work very well and flow very well,
I think also that perhaps the media kind of needs something like that, because I'm thinking about like NPR. They will do those exclusive first listens or various, other media outlets, but NPR is the one that comes to mind right now. It'll be like, hey, so-and-so has a new record that has just been released, but you can hear it here first. Right. And they've got to plan that. They've got to sort of set up, well, next week we have, Trombone Shorty, and the week after that it's After NAYSAYER, and the week after that it's Royal Teeth, and we can't do them all in the same week kind of thing. So it's about scheduling the PR flow. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I was saying all that PR is almost like ceremonial. Your release date that's the official date, and it could be like if you have a wedding, you have a whole lot of parties and like leading up to that wedding, but you're actually not married until you sign the paper at the office. So it's just like
Nicole,
that's the day. Maybe
Nicole, are you listening? That's our social media gal. She's watching from LA. Did you hear? I want you to retweet that this is like a wedding. Putting your record out's like a wedding. That I think that we can go home now, folks. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. How many times you been married?
We've all been married like many times. So it's like
All right. Thank you for that. I think that's actually really helpful. All right, another question for me. And by the way, if anybody here has a question, just go ahead and step up to the microphone, and we'll get to you as quickly as we can. Do any of you have any experience with putting out a record strictly in a digital format, no physical product at all?
The last record I put out, last EP I did was just solely digital.
And so why did you make that decision?
Well, I just thought about what like my fan base wanted. They were just interested in just buying it off of Bandcamp. So it's like, oh, well, you want to buy it off of Bandcamp? Well, here it is. Better for me.
But do you usually, so that was an unusual release for you? Do you usually make physical product?
Yeah, I usually, because I tour. Like when I tour, I didn't also tour for that EP either. So
having merch to sell from the bandstand.
Yeah. So I just, just usually just have it for the physical when I'm on tour. I move it well on tour. So here we go. Let's keep it simple.
Anybody else?
Our last EP was digital only, but we made a short run of physicals for touring. Yeah. I feel like that's really important, to have a physical product on the road with you that people can take home, something tangible. And, whether or not they take it home and they end up streaming your music anyway, But I think it's important to have that for your fans because people want to leave with something, Yeah. And other than that, other than the short run of physicals, we did digital only.
Our first record was like 2008. We just put it up for a free zip kind of download on the website, and that was the only thing we had. Same with like just early records that, if we go on tour, we'll repress to have some physical copies years later or whatnot. But it's just to get it out there. If you feel the need, like I just have to put it out, and maybe someone will listen to it. That's like the method. But yeah.
I'm the same way as these guys. I'd print up copies to go on tour. We don't have any real physical distribution at this point for physical retailers. It'd be nice to get it. I'm not gonna lie.
For your independent label,
we're definitely gonna work towards that end to get some physical distribution. But I only press up copies for going on tour.
And what do you guys do for digital distribution? Do you work through any of the digital distribution platforms that are out there?
Yeah, we use TuneCore.
Anybody else?
Our label does Sony Red, so we're through Sony Red.
I'm currently with DistroKid.
DistroKid. Okay, awesome. And
CD Baby to TuneCore.
Interesting. Okay, so we have a TuneCore rep in the audience here, so we have. Thank you for the shout out.
Thanks for the money. On time.
So how do you? I mean, what are some of the other tricks of creating an event like a wedding out of your release date? I mean, how do you build the hype? How do you get people to pay attention to it?
Well, you gotta have a party, a release party. Get everybody to come out and support the new record. Like if you're gonna come out to the show, come out to the release party. Let's make it a big spectacle.
Content, just constant content on social medias. Whether it's video, song snippets, early release like singles. We just constantly try to create content to get people engaged, and in a party. So, and I think touring as well. Touring is very important. Just being out on the road, talking to people, being in front of people. I think that's probably the most effective thing you can do. But other than that, we try to create a lot of content for our socials.
Yeah, and if you have to release content through, like I feel like artists will more like consider a PR campaign like dragging it out almost, but it's hard to do. But if you see it like, well, it's a necessary evil, I'm gonna do it anyway, you can actually kind of have fun with it, either making a theme or something that makes even a flyer or your party or kind of ties it all together and make it part of your record. Release plan is kind of, I think, a good move, or that's what I've done. Just kind of kind of tie it all together, even if it's like brand, you can call it branding or like theming your whole campaign and all of your little pieces or parties or flyers, you know, and just putting all that together can kind of make your record seem bigger than it actually is, just because you're tying it all together. But
No, I mean, I agree with all that. I think planning, you know, just having a, you know, giving yourself enough time, giving yourself enough of a runway to make a effective release plan, and just, you know, trying to stick to that plan as much as possible. I mean, things will shift around and things will change, but, you know, just having a plan and sticking to it, I think is important.
Now, a couple of you guys have been on major labels, and Mark, in your case, now are running your own independent label. Are there any lessons or things that you saw or tricks of the trade that you're kind of pinching from the major label shtick when it comes to thinking about, you know, when we put this next record out, I'm going to, you know.
So I think the major label model of getting the record done and then having several months of lead time to make sure that the PR campaign is set up and run properly is something that we're probably not going to abandon. What we, you know, the best practices that we can grab from the major label system, I think, begin and end there, really. You know, most of the dollars that get spent by major labels are spent because they're major labels. For instance, the cost to me to rent a recording studio vary drastically depending on whether or not I'm signed to a major label. The cost to work with a producer varies drastically depending on whether or not I'm on a major label.
I'll bet.
So there are all kinds of costs associated with doing business simply because they're major players, and there are standards that are in play there that I think we'll definitely jettison. You know, the truth is, I think more than anything, songs matter. And I think we've gotten a bit away from that ideal. I think that hit songs really, really matter. Major labels are they're so jonesing for massive success that they stopped really caring about songwriting and song crafting and artist development and career building. And so I'm going to try to do exactly the opposite of what they've done. They've grown into these behemoths that don't care at all about the industry. The fans know it. The artists know it. The savviest among the artistry, I think, are staying away, rightfully so, from the major players. And the more that you see that trend away from major labels, I think the more you'll see money flowing back into the hands of the artists. Because there's more money being made on music than there ever has been. And very little of that money is being directed to the creators. So I'm just trying to do my best to try and show a younger generation of artists the way that we've been able to do things, and the model that we've got, I think, is very sustainable and workable for a long, long time. And then expose those younger artists to a fan base that I've worked on building for the past 15 years. And we're just going to grind it out, because that's the way we road warriors do. We grind it out.
Well, to your point, though, you know, artists now have so many more options. And, I mean, there are great success stories now of people who are able to bypass the whole system. Look at Chance the Rapper.
Right.
And, you know, the incredible success that he has enjoyed while putting his music out for free. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that something that's part of your bag of tricks, is releasing music, you know, free of cost?
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a way for us to figure out how to reduce production cost to as near zero as possible, which is what we've been able to do. On Atlantic Records, I spent $450,000 making the last record I made for them. The last album that I just recorded, we spent $15,000 making. So we've drastically reduced production costs, and the further we can get those, or the closer we can get those production costs to zero, the easier it's going to be for all of us to consider at least the possibility of releasing music for free. I'd love to be able to give my music away for free and eat that cost as a marketing cost. I'd be fine with that if we could get it a little closer to zero.
Amal, do you put your music out for free?
I put out some remixes I've done, like some official remixes what I've done with artists. I did something with Phony People. They're out of Brooklyn, New York. That was free. And this track, Juicy Orange, they're this rap group out of Taiwan. And that's also free. So, but only remixes.
Have you guys ever done that? Done like a release of a record, but it's actually a free record? And try to build up just as much hype around a free release? No, that's not something you've even considered.
Either if you decide if it's free or not, someone's going to put it on the internet. So it kind of is
Well,
free.
I guess my question is, I mean, this whole notion of building hype around a release, picking a release date, generating publicity, generating, distribution stream and all that kind of stuff, is that, purely as a way of driving sales?
Yes.
Oh.
Absolutely.
In the mic.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. With my business partners, with my managers and all of the folks that I work with, convincing them that we should give the music away for free is a very difficult task. And there are only a handful of examples in the broader market that have been able to demonstrate substantial success with that model. We've only seen a handful of artists that really were able to make serious waves by doing that or generate substantial dollars from putting it up for a donation, right? So it's still a very Wild West kind of scene. There's no real cut and dry way to put these records out. There are clearly a number of very successful methods that you can employ to release your records. And I think that's the beauty of this business is that art really is very subjective in that way. And so I think that if we as the creators really do have the finger on the pulse of our fans, that we should be looked to as the best source of knowledge about how to effectively communicate to those people. And if you as an artist feel like your fans would be benefited, and you and that relationship would be benefited by you giving them your music for free, you have to assess those values and really take a hard look at whether or not that's going to bring you more value than you would if you were trying to sell it.
Well, I mean, but we're assuming that we're still working with a business model that says this is music that I've spent money to record. I'm now going to release it to the public, and there's going to be a transaction involved. I expect people to pay for this music, and I expect to actually, hopefully, make a profit from it. Is that still part of the plan?
I mean, for Royal Teeth, we never plan on making money off of album sales. We've kind of just abandoned that thought and shifted everything to focus. Shifted all of our focus to streaming, because at the end of the day, I'm looking at our streaming numbers, not our sales numbers, because I think that's what matters now, or our ticket sales, or our numbers going up on the road, or we put more people in the room. That's the stuff that we kind of focus on a little more than the actual sale of units, moving units.
So if you put your music up on Spotify, then you are effectively writing off any potential revenue, right?
That's the way I look at it, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, our income comes from everywhere but album sales. We make a little merch money on the road selling, physicals, but other than that, I mean, it's streaming, it's syncs, it's music licensing, it's being out and playing shows, So I would be totally happy giving all of our music away for free because I feel like we're in a way almost doing that already.
Amal, you're nodding. Do you look at records as a profit-making venture, or are they just a means of getting people to hear your music?
Just like you said, it's all about streaming right now, and I was like kind of against it for so long because the way my model was just sell stuff on the road, just move the physical product on the road. Not as many people are buying stuff digitally, but then there are especially in the genre I do, there's a big support on Bandcamp of people who just support those records and whatnot. But thinking of the overall masses and the bigger picture, I don't really expect too many people to be on iTunes and whatnot buying my record. So I do expect people to be on Spotify and all the curated playlists, getting placement on the curated playlists and whatnot to stream that music.
But generally speaking, I mean, do your records recoup? Do they make a profit?
So you're selling it on the road, yes. So when I'm on tour, that always covers, usually covers the costs.
So the merch sales from the bandstand, do you guys agree? Is that generally where the cash positive part of all this comes from?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the black on day one for pre-orders for my last 2 albums, which are both independent releases. But once again, we kept production costs as close to zero as possible. And that's the only reason why we were in the black on day one. I'm in the process, once again, of building a company that calls itself a record label and yet has no desire and sees no real interest in selling records. We're not going to build the business on the back of selling records. We're going to build it on other ways to generate revenue. So I don't necessarily see records as huge money-making tools these days. If I make enough money to make the next record, it's a success.
I think it's important to know your demographic. Marc's demographic is different than Royalty's demographic. Marc's demographic, is probably a little bit older than ours, and they still buy albums. So, I think that's Marc probably has a different game plan than we do going into release. Where I know we're not going to sell a bunch of physical units, unless we're out touring. All of our fans are going to go and stream. So, that kind of can affect the way you view things or your game plan going into things. Because we've never recouped before our albums dropped off of pre-orders, So I think just knowing your demographic and knowing whether your fans will buy albums or do they stream, I think that's important.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the free download versus, just getting it out there to make money or just getting it out there to get exposure. I've always had the motive is the exposure route, just to as many people as possible can see it without, going crazy amounts into debt. But I just read a tweet the other day that was good. They were like, if you're using the term free download, you're not even relevant right now. Because I was like, that's what we did for 4 years. We're oh, you can go to our website and get it for free.
Go to our MySpace page.
Yeah. Right. But now we got streaming, so it's basically free for everyone.
Everything's free already.
And there is a revenue stream. There's 10 different revenue streams that, or and counting on how you can make money back for whatever you spent on your record. But it's definitely a gamble of I don't know how much you make off of Spotify or all these other ones, but that's kind of helping out now, and also giving you the exposure. That's what we want. We want it to be easily accessible to anyone who wants to hear it. So that's why we gave it away for free download for years. But now that problem has been solved. So we got to figure out another way to make money. Because it doesn't pay you much, but it does pay.
What about publicists? Is it worth hiring a publicist for a release?
100%, absolutely. In fact, I have a publicist on permanent retainer, not just on the release. I pay him every month. And I think it's highly important, personally.
I think it depends. I think you have to kind of, in order to get, at least in my experience, to get your money's worth with a publicist, because it can get expensive, especially for independent artists. I think it's important that you have to create your story for them. You got to have something for them to sell. Whether that's, and it could be the smallest, smaller things. It could be, sold out this last hometown show, and you can get some regional press there, or this, the first single independently released had 1 million streams. What it doesn't matter what it is, but you have to kind of create that story for them to go out and sell. Because it is expensive, and we've seen great success with publicists. We've seen, complete waste of money. So I think it's kind of, it's easy. It's not a great answer, but I think it depends.
Yeah, I definitely think it depends, especially on what kind of genre you do and whatnot. So, me doing the atmospheric beats and whatnot. A lot of times, a lot of publicists I've talked to don't know how to necessarily market what I do. So it makes it a little difficult. So it makes it hard for me to just shell out that much money for a service where it might not necessarily get a certain placement. Or I have some friends who have gotten some placements and nothing really came of it, but it's also about you got to really invest. If you are doing the PR, just like you said, you got to really invest all the time. You can't just like, okay, I got this feature on Fader, and if no one knows who you are and you got a feature on Fader, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, you got to keep having press generated all the time, because it might take you like 7 times to see the same artist. I remember when I first started Action Bronson, it took about like 8 or 9 times for me to see him on a blog or something. Like, okay, well, who's this guy? Let me check it out. So you got to constantly, you know, if you're going to do PR, you got to definitely have your money right. You know, it is expensive, so.
Very expensive. But in a genre like yours, is it something that lends itself more to a word of mouth or people sharing on social media as opposed to like a traditional media?
I hate to say luck, because luck is saying it's discrediting all the hard work you put in. Like I think of my friend Zach Froyo Ma. It just he had a friend who on SoundCloud who had pretty big numbers. He shared it, and then it blew up from there. And I see his numbers way higher than most people I know who had PR, like proper hired a PR firm, like astronomical numbers, like for all his songs he puts up and reposts other people's songs. And sometimes a SoundCloud repost is it's worth a lot of money. But I see SoundCloud's kind of like the numbers are dwindling now.
And a publicist did not.
No, he never had any publicist, and he gets more internet exposure. And from that, he had placement on Broad City, like last year, and some other things happened just because of just a SoundCloud repost.
But is that the kind of thing that you can plan for? I mean, if you're putting out a record and you want, and if this panel's about planning your release strategy, can you, you know, if you say, I'm going to release my record on September 1st, you can't necessarily assume that somebody's going to repost your song or
Well,
something.
like I said, so I think like SoundCloud, I noticed like the numbers are going down. Is not what it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I think now like that is like getting like being on a iTunes, Apple Music playlist, like a officially curated Apple Music playlist or a Spotify playlist, or in Taiwan there's KKBox, like getting on an official playlist, and that's the new repost big, you know, because if you get on one of those playlists, like you're guaranteed to get a bunch of views. I did a remix for Boyfriend, and one of the songs she's doing Jazz Fest, and one of the songs she had this remix album, and they picked one of the remix I did for her, and it's gotten like within like I think like 2 weeks it got like 65,000 plays real quick. So
which one was that? Which playlist
it
was
called Company Inc. So you know,
So
I forget. I don't know the name of the playlist. It was
are
on a
there-
couple different ones.
I'm sorry.
I would say those playlists are huge. I mean, it's like the new radio. You know, it's. I mean, you can see. I mean, one of our songs is on there, and you know, of course, a couple months we've gotten a couple million plays. You know, and that's not because people are going to our page and clicking the song. It's because they're discovering the song. You know, much like radio, where they're just on these playlists. They follow these playlists, and they hear the song, they save it, and they then become a fan. It's
So people follow playlists.
Correct,
So how do you know which playlists? I mean, can you target them? Can you say, hey, we got a new record. Will you add us to your playlist?
You can try.
Yeah, we were
can
just talking
definitely
about that
try.
earlier. I mean, it's not regulated, so a lot of it is kind of controlled by the major labels right now. Yeah. But
So
it
are
also
people
goes back to
buying their way in? Or people
Well,
like,
yeah, of
you know?
course.
Yeah.
You know, and if you follow a playlist or an influencer that you think would be a good fit for your album, it's probably a good idea to do as much research on the individual as possible. Find out exactly what they like, buy it, and send it to them.
Call the NSA, get their FBI file,
Yeah, all that.
tap their phone.
Absolutely.
You know.
Find out which scotch they like, send it to them with a little nice note that says, hey, just wanted you to know I'm a big fan.
But I mean, do you ever tweet
Yeah, I'm
somebody
super
and
fan of your
say,
playlist.
hey, do you ever tweet somebody and say, hey, I'd really love it if you would, add our song to your playlist or something like that?
You're never going to see me beg for a playlist
I mean,
addition.
there's a whole bunch of companies now that just you pay them to get you on those playlists.
Yeah.
It's almost like radio teams, so now people are making money by hiring someone to go and beg to be on the playlist.
Let's make
so we'll
it,
put
let's
a
make it
middleman
clear. Let's make it clear.
there for you.
Not the artist.
No,
Some
not the
people are
artist.
making money, but they're not the
Not
artist.
the artist. Yeah. So.
Do we have a question?
So I'm just kind of curious as like when you all were first kind of starting, how far did y'all go yourselves with doing like PR and booking and stuff before you kind of decided like maybe I'm not really getting anywhere with this and I'm going to hire somebody? And would you think that it's more effective to do a PR person or a booking person if you're doing a release and then going to tour afterward?
Well, like with PR, it depends on like who the PR person is. You got to make sure they're working for you and not working for themselves.
Sure.
You know, I've seen so many horror stories where they hire a PR person and nothing really came of it,
Right.
and that's just money that was just wasted.
Yeah,
So
that's why we
it's all
kinda
about
been
just finding a perfect
for
fit.
a while.
Same thing with booking agents too. It's like you got to find the perfect person to book for you that's working for you. And so it's asterisk question mark.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the PR thing, I tell bands that are starting up, there's like, there's this company called Submit Hub that you can use, and it basically it's very cheap, and it sends out, your song to blogs that you select, and they give you feedback, and a lot of the bands that I've advised to do this, like they'll get features, they'll get blog features and reviews, and then they'll get a lot of people that decline, but at least they're getting feedback, and you're kind of seeing where that blog world stands with your product to give you a little idea of PR would be worth it. And as far as booking agent, yeah, I mean I agree. Find somebody that's really passionate about your project, and the good thing is they work on commission, so PR doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, even if it's PR or booking, like whatever you can get, the more heads, the better. As long as they're, like you said, passionate about what you do. Like, anything helps, right?
Hi. Sorry, cut you off. I just realized you were still talking, but I want to know, how did you all expand your market? I'm working with someone who has a fan base here, but they don't really buy the music. They don't really come to the shows, but they'll come in his face and be like, man, the song is dope. So we realized that this is just not the place. How do you expand your market with a small budget, or even just gain the recognition of people listening to your music in other places?
Go ahead, man.
Go out in other cities and play shows. I remember in 2014, a couple of friends were like, hey, you should be opening up for these bigger name acts when they're touring through. And a lot of the production companies were like, oh, well, we see you doing your thing, but okay, whatever. And I was like, well, it sounds like it's a good time for me to go on tour. Let me go out and play everywhere but like Louisiana. And when I did that, I came back. They're like, oh, we see you touring. You're doing this thing. You're making some names. You're making a name for yourself. And the opportunities started happening locally.
How did you get that opportunity? You know what I mean? Like, how did you get that opportunity to go and play in at least that one city?
You gotta send emails out. Talk to other artists. See what they do. Some people do artist trade, like they trade shows. I don't believe in that. I was like, if I'm gonna help somebody out, it's because I believe in them, not because they did something for me. But just reach out to because find weeklies, monthly, just all kind of events that cater to like the genre of music you do. There's usually some kind of event that happens like every month, and hit those people up. And then the music world is very small, so you'll find out like where to go for each city. So
if the artist can deliver live, the most effective strategy I've seen to grow a fan base is what's called a residency tour. I started it in 2002. We started out. We did a residency run: Birmingham, Nashville, Knoxville, Johnson City, Tennessee, Atlanta, and Greenville, South Carolina, I think. And we played the same venue, same time, same day of the week, every week for 3 weeks, and incentivized the fans to bring other fans by saying, if you brought 2 other paying customers next week and your ticket stub from last week, you get in free. And we were able to grow a fan base from 10 people in the place that were bar regulars the first week to a couple of 300 people by the time we came back on week 3. And we've been able to sustain growth in those markets for 15 years. That's the most effective strategy I've ever seen work, to grow a fan base in a very short order.
So bribing your fans to get in for free with free beer, basically.
It is.
they're on a free download.
Yeah, right.
Oh, here, take this download card. Oh, what's that on the floor? Radio?
What's about it?
Is it relevant anymore? Does radio matter? And how do you approach it?
Get ready to spend money, and for certain genres, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, radio is very important. In the alternative world, But yeah, I mean, it's expensive, and just like PR, there's no guarantees. I mean, absolutely no guarantees. So again, before you go to radio, and before you start spending that kind of money, just make sure the story's there. Make sure the song's got traction. Make sure it's undeniable, because it is expensive, and especially for an independent artist. I mean, if you don't have somebody with backing you financially, it's very, very difficult. Yeah. At least from
Sean,
my
is there a
experience.
radio format that works for you guys? I mean, what you do is pretty special.
More the college radio route, or actually meeting DJs or people that play, because that's, I haven't even thought about spending money to get on the radio, but if I meet someone that works in the radio, I'll, hope, at least hope that they like our music and try to get it accessible to them, however it is. But yeah, it's, in our experience, more college radio route, and it's us, I guess, people our age, or people that, actually care about college radio and try to keep that alive by volunteering or whatever. Those people actually do digging for music, and they don't play, top 40 hits on repeat all day. So that's the stations that, if I listen to, and I try to meet those people to try to get it, because they're mostly,
But you're not
volunteers.
spending money on a promoter to try to get you into all of the college stations in Texas. And,
No, maybe, paying someone to help you mail out a whole lot of things, so they are all in, in the inboxes or whatever. But
Amal, radio? Is there a radio world for you?
Just like places I've been interviewed by, and I never really seeked out to hit up just random college radio stations. I just focus more on just touring. And when I do go on tour, if there's an opportunity for me to do an interview at the college radio station and build a connection there we go. Because when they see a face to the music, they take it more serious. So,
but we're still talking non-commercial radio.
Non-commercial radio.
Commercial radio format.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important to distinguish, is like, we are more the alternative commercial radio type of band, where...
So you're really looking for the B97s, the...
More alternative format than top 40, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same
KKND.
idea. Sure. But yeah, it's a very big difference, where college radio is not going to play us. We're too pop for college, so, it's a different ballgame,
Mark, what about you? Is there commercial radio for you?
If there is commercial radio, it's not necessarily going to be because we tried to work it real hard. I do have a release coming up in the next few months, and we may reach out to some independent radio promo for some help. I just haven't had a lot of success, to be honest. The problem that I've run into is that I put out a lot of energy and a lot of effort into courting relationships with terrestrial radio. Sat on a lot of couches and picked my guitar for a lot of program directors who would tell me point blank, "Mark, I love your record. I listen to it on the way to work every day, and on
I'm
the way
never
home
gonna
every
play
day. I can't put it on my station." I don't even know if there's a whole lot of authority in the buildings on the ground. I think that a lot of control is exerted from corporate headquarters over playlisting. So there's not a lot that program directors, quote unquote, can really even do at this point to get me on their stations. Top 40 has a playlist of about 16 songs these days. It ain't 40 songs, that's for sure. So try working your way into a 16-song playlist that's dominated by some really the biggest players in the industry.
Especially if you're a AAA artist.
Exactly. It's a very, very difficult game to work. And what I've kind of decided is that I've spent enough time trying to court them. If they're going to ever play a song of mine, they're going to do it on their own accord.
We have a question over here.
Yeah, real quick. One of the biggest things I see as a problem for me personally, trying to make it work, is getting out to get these tour dates together, like you're saying. So you suggest, like, if it's a city I want to get to or whatever. Let's just say Mississippi or something, because I heard an artist say go to places that artists don't usually go, and you could build a brand like that. So you guys suggesting, like, I would like email, call the club owners and things like that?
I think
Yeah.
Email for sure. Like try to find events for like the genre of music you do. Like so usually there's like some kind of event that goes on, or it's a venue that might cater to a certain kind of genre or whatnot. Hit those people up and just reply, and just eventually they'll say no or yes. But if they say no, that's okay, because eventually they'll say yes. But don't be afraid if you get ignored. Don't be afraid to get ignored. It happens. They get emails all the time. You just have to keep following up.
And I'm cool with that. My thing is I ain't trying to do the hit and misses. Okay, one show here, a couple weeks, 3 more weeks, another show. Like, I'm trying to see how artists get like a whole tour lineup. Y'all like actually you have to pay somebody to do that for you, or you do most of that yourself?
Well, for me, no. I did my booking for myself for a long time. Then I started working with independent booking agency, and we co-did it together. We worked together on it. And
did you ever make telephone calls pretending to be a booking agent? It's like, hey, this is Irving Azoff, and I'm calling for after NAYSAYER.
I advocate with the strongest possible terms to lie and cheat your way to the top of this business.
Well, we're in the right town for that.
Everybody else is lying and cheating their way to the top of this business. You have every right, my friend, to call up the club and say that you just got off tour with Kanye. Let them know that you've been selling tickets left and right all over the West Coast and the East Coast and the South Coast. Let them know. Lie your way to the top, man.
Amal.
No, I was gonna say I did that with PR. So I just made. I'm gonna make my own PR company. All right, Mint Mustard PR. There we go. We'll just say that, because like a lot of times like, oh, you're an artist. Well, you can't just submit your stuff. Like you got to go through a PR agency. Well, I have a Mint Mustard PR. There we go.
My name is Bruce Bigsley, and I'm calling to tell you about the new artist AF the NAYSAYER.
Cool. All right, thank you. I'll try that. I'm gonna try to lie my way to the top.
Wait. I do have something.
You heard it here first, bro.
What really could help you out is find someone who is actually touring, and who's like maybe on like a smaller level, and see if you can get on as support, even if it's just for like a couple of dates, maybe like 3 or 4 dates, but it just gets you circulating where you're going to meet the people booking the shows. You just need to be around the people who are booking the shows and get them to know who you are, because you can send an email, but once they see you in person, it changes the whole ball game.
You can also buy your way on the tours. I made a substantial earnings last year from people paying me for access to my audience. So you can buy access to audiences. If you like an artist and you think you would be a good fit for their audience, call them up and say, hey, man, what's it going to cost to let me open the show?
All right, we have a couple more questions, and we're essentially out of time, so we got to hurry up. All right, real quick, talk fast.
For the times that you have worked with publicists, let's say it's for something very specific like a release, how far in advance do you engage those publicists? Because you're talking about having a runway, which I totally get. When you're
How much money have you got?
But you have to make sure that they're available and they have enough time to lay all the groundwork you need them to lay, right?
I mean, I think they always want more time than you can give them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 12 weeks. And if you give them 12 weeks, they want 18.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just the earlier the better for them. But at the same time, like, you're paying them. So, of course,
I know with my first release, I just talked to the PR agent first and was like, okay, this is what I have. Let's plan a release date around this. And I let them plan the release date. Yeah. So, working with their schedule.
Normally, it's like 3-month periods. You'll pay PR. So, at least.
But you have to have all your details worked out before.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, you have to have your stuff ready to roll.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. One more question, and then we got to go.
How y'all doing? As an independent artist who is pretty much the bank behind all the endeavors, in a position where I'm starting to pick up real traction, wanting to know what would you say would be your top 3 things as far as putting money behind when it comes to PR, videographer, publicist. I hear a lot of things that can help artists, but in that stage where you only got enough money for a few of them, what would be the top 3?
Top 3 spending priorities. Josh?
Video.
Mark, video?
Video, I think video maybe, and then video.
Video, and video. Okay, great.
Pretty important.
I mean, I think it's not all, you can do it for much cheaper now, but I mean, having quality recordings, because just having good.
So put the money into the record.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but I think it is important to
And you remember yesterday's panel on how much to spend on making your record, so we've got that one covered.
Yeah. So I mean,
Sean?
I would say audio.
Yeah, depending on how much you have and how quickly you want it to come back to you, either like, well, I can make some really nice merch that will probably sell because it's really nice, or I can make some really bad merch that's not going to sell. Yeah, or PR, whatever you think is going to help you like get to where you want to go. But if it's trying to get the record out there or like to expand your audience rapidly.
Exposure. Yeah. I'm thinking exposure and money.
The reason that I say video content creation is where you're going to spend your money, or you should, is because that's where I've seen the most return on investment. When I hire a video crew, we set up at a studio and we knock out 6 or 10 videos in the course of an afternoon. And it's a 4-figure expenditure to hire a video crew to come out there and do it. But one video that gets posted to YouTube and Facebook takes my record sales that day and for the rest of the week from 10 records a day to 60 and 80 records a day. And that's $600 to $800 in revenue every single day that video is up. So regardless of whether or not it cost me 1/10 of the $2,000 that it costs overall the course of the entire shoot, it's exceptionally worth the expenditure to put that video together. When Beyonce's Lemonade came out, a friend of mine said it was the most important cultural achievement, pop cultural achievement of our lifetimes, and I thought she was an idiot for saying that, but in retrospect, I think she's absolutely right. Video content for musicians is driving social media. Facebook prioritizes video. So if you can create high quality content, you're definitely creating value for these social media networks, which prize that value and will help you just with their algorithm, the way that their algorithm works. It's just going to help you to have high quality video content. That's where I would invest the money, to stay relevant over a long period when trying to stay relevant around a release.
Amal, top 3 spending priorities.
Oh, well, for me, it's like the mixing and mastering process, like
putting the money into the record,
and then merchandise
and merch.
So that's really where I put all my money towards. So
Merch is huge.
I'm very fortunate. I used to work in the film industry, so I have friends who work in the film industry. So cash in favors. So just try to find all the what resources you have around you of people who do things, and hit those people up before you go out and seek professional help on certain things. Just look what's around you first, in your community too, because you build your team. You need to build your team around you, especially if you're a local. So because you can give your money to like an outsider, but then like where's it go from there? Like you can spend a lot of money on a video project, but who's gonna push it? I've seen people spend lots of money on video and not get a lot of traction at all. So you gotta have a plan. So whatever you do, you just have to plan how you spend your money.
All right, well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this edition of this panel at the 10th Annual Sync Up Conference. So please thank Amal Abdul Khalik, otherwise known as AF the Naysayer, Marc Broussard, Josh Hefner from Royal Teeth, and Sean Hart from the band Caddywhompus. Thank you all. We have another panel that starts in just a minute.